Next on Broadway Profiles, COVID can't stop the 2020 Tony Awards. Better late than never. You'll hear from lots of this year's belatedly nominated stars. Plus, it's beginning to look a lot like Christmas. Some of Broadway's top performers appearing in some of this year's biggest holiday movies. And a little bit later, Blindness off-Broadway. For the first time in months, live theater returns to New York City, and it's based on a best-selling novel. I'm Tamsen Fadal, and this is Broadway Profiles, presented by Broadway.com. Welcome to Broadway Profiles. I'm your host, Tamsen Fadal. On Broadway and across America, it really has been a year like no other. But all along, we have been saying Broadway will be back. And the announcement of the 2020 Tony Award nominations is a big step toward getting there. Of course, this year's ceremony, just like the nominations, will be held virtually, safe and socially distant. So let's talk nominees. Jagged Little Pill, the musical, based on the iconic songs of Alanis Morissette, leads the pack with 15 Tony nominations, followed by MOULIN Rouge with 14 nods. And Tina, the Tina Turner musical, with a dozen nominations. I had a chance to talk with one of the Tony-nominated stars of Tina, the man who plays Ike Turner, Daniel J. Watts, as well as the musical's playwright, Katori Hall. She also earned a nomination. I want to say congratulations to both of you. First off, can you give me your reaction upon hearing the news?
I think we probably had the same reaction, this thing of like, yay! Oh, but the world is really messed up right now. Just bittersweet, but I must say that, you know, it's an honor. It's an honor to be celebrated with what I think is the most amazing show ever.
Hey, it's like this mostly sweet, like they say, a bittersweet. It's inside of a bubble. You can't really go show, you know, all your fellow nominees. You can't hug each other. You know, the family, 12 nominations. We couldn't celebrate it together. And then to be honest, I was met with a lot of love that I just didn't expect, and it almost eclipsed the nomination itself. Like just to have the support system, especially in that space, Ike Turner, like you just feel alone a lot in that space. So just to have that many people like rooting, and you remember everything, like every moment that led up to, just like the announcement. So it was really cool, but also, and then in a bubble.
You're saying you feel alone sometimes when you're playing a character like that. And I never thought about that, but it is. I can understand it when you say it like that. How does that feel?
Ooh, Ike was hard. Ike was hard. It starts with people even coming to see the show. They're coming with their arms folded. He is who he is. He did what he did to a person that we all love and care about. So and there's also the wanting to hold on to that version of Ike coming in, so there's a little bit of a betrayal when you start to try to humanize this individual that people have decided is only a monster. And also coming from the ensemble, like I'm used to being a part of the tribe in that way, always being in some scene in the, and this is my first time in a Broadway show where I wasn't doing that. So I just had moments that, that's all. I was in therapy every Friday.
And we were so lucky to have you, Daniel, to step into that role, because I feel as though you were able to show how charming he was, how genius he was. I mean, this is the father of rock and roll. And to also just to be able to get to the vulnerability of him. It's like, even people who are doing bad things in the world, they cry, they have resentment, they hurt. And so, I mean, Daniel just was, showing that in spades on stage. And so, like, I always say, like, we are so blessed to have him.
What do you want to say to fans and people that are ready for Broadway to come back and just waiting?
This intermission is going to end. The curtain is going to come back up. It's going to happen. And so in the meantime, support these artists, donate to the Actors Fund. We are struggling out here, and that struggle is going to be long, but it's people who love the arts and understand the power of theater that's going to pull us all through.
As we said, Jagged Little Pill is the most nominated show of 2020. We talked to one of the Tony-nominated stars of Jagged Little Pill, Elizabeth Stanley.
I mean, I've always felt really grateful to be a part of a show that has something to say, that does have some depth to it, actually has quite a bit of depth to it. And Yeah, I think, Alanis's whole kind of like mantra with the show is that it's about human connection and, transparency and being honest about who we are. And I think whether or not we like it, we're all forced to really lean into all those things in this moment. I mean, it is a bizarre time, but I think I feel really grateful to have, a moment to celebrate something. I think during this time, we all have to remember to be joyful. And if there is something to be joyful about, I feel like I have a deeper reason to really celebrate. I have to get dressed up. I mean, I know some people are like, whatever, I'm just going to be in my sweats, but it's my first Tony nomination. It's like a moment I've been dreaming about for my whole life. So I do think that even if it's just, a fancy pair of jeans, I'm going to be dressed up.
I'm so glad we're friends. So you're single in Paris?
Let's talk about Broadway stars on TV, because Emily in Paris continues to be one of the most bingeable shows on Netflix. Plus, it features a recent Tony nominee from the Broadway smash hit Mean Girls. Let's go ahead and send it over to Broadway.com's editor-in-chief, Paul Wontorek, with the rest of the story. Hi there, Paul.
Thanks, Tamsen. We're talking about Ashley Park, nominated for a 2019 Tony Award for Best Featured Actress in Mean Girls, the musical. And now she's bringing that Broadway experience to the brand new show from the creator of Sex and the City, Emily in Paris.
Paris is the most exciting city in the world, and you never know what's going to happen next.
So what was it like filming it? Did you feel kind of like Emily in that you got to sort of have this escape to Paris and have an adventure?
100%. It was my first time ever in Paris. So I was like, this is the running joke was that it was Ashley in Paris. We're like, what's going on in that show right tonight? So, and I, me coming from the Broadway world too, and I really hadn't had any time off, from 8 shows a week. So I've always wanted to travel. I've always wanted to study abroad, and I never got to do those things. And so I felt like I was meeting a soulmate when I first got there. I was like, oh, everything that I've loved, everything from fashion, different foods, different lifestyle. I was like, this is my exact fit.
Wait, we don't get to drink it? It's so expensive.
Relax, they'll buy more. Santé. Santé.
So let's talk about Mindy. I love Mindy. And I love you playing Mindy, because I felt like you had a really cool, different kind of energy. It wasn't just kind of the best friend delivering the line. I loved it. I thought you really sort of captured something really unique, and so congratulations.
So, it's so funny especially with the show dropping globally while everyone's still isolated in pandemic.
Right.
It was wild, and I think we're just so happy that it's made so many people happy. I don't think, I think we knew that people were going to enjoy it, but I don't think we expected or even thought about the kind of reception that it's gotten so far. We live in the live performance world, in the Broadway world, where I've done how many thousands of live performances now, and it's been 2 weeks of this show being out, and every person in my life, from every walk of my friends, families, people I haven't talked to in years, every person has watched it or is about to. So it's so crazy.
There's a long history of American media and pop culture showing the French characters. And I know there's been a little bit of a backlash with French people being like, what is going on with this portrayal of us in this show? I don't really agree with it, but what do you think about all that? Yeah,
well, what's funny to me is that I actually think one of the parts I love about Mindy is she kind of serves as a foil to kind of hold up a mirror to Emily when Emily's being an insufferable American. Yep. And so even if there are certain aspects of the French culture that we highlight, those are all they tell time, they do dates differently. They have their meat all the way, all of these different things. But I think I loved watching because I was like, oh, here's a really smart girl, Emily, and you're so endeared to her. Lily is so effervescent in that role. But you also see, you can't just be an American and come, they call out Americans just as much in it.
Once again, Emily in Paris, now streaming on Netflix. Back to you, Tamsen.
Thanks so much, Paul. Well, let's get ready for prom night. The highly anticipated film adaptation of The Prom arrives on Netflix in just a matter of weeks now. Something's universal.
You're not alone.
There's no dress rehearsal. The film, directed by Ryan Murphy, is adapted from the 2018 Broadway musical of the same name. And I have to tell you, the cast is spectacular. We're talking Meryl Streep, Nicole Kidman, Kerry Washington, Keegan-Michael Key, James Corden, and the list goes on. As Murphy told The Hollywood Reporter, it's about 25% different from the Broadway play. The Prom, arriving on Netflix December 11th.
Everybody's coming to my house. Everybody's coming to my house.
David Byrne's American Utopia, now streaming on HBO Max. The Broadway concert film, directed by Oscar winner Spike Lee, premiered in mid-October. It's a combination of narrative story, classic hits from the Talking Heads, and deep tracks. The show premiered on Broadway at the Hudson Theater just over a year ago. And now, American Utopia is scheduled to make its Broadway return in September 2021. And it is never too early to start talking about Christmas, because you can check out some of our favorite Broadway stars right now in some brand new holiday movies.
Sleigh bells are ring, are you listening? In the lane, snow is glistening, a beautiful sight. We're happy tonight, walking in a winter wonderland.
A pair of Tony nominees are starring in the new Hallmark Christmas movie, One Royal Holiday. Let's go ahead and send it over to Broadway.com correspondent Charlie Cooper with more on the story. Hi, Charlie.
Thanks, Tamsen. Broadway's favorite Cinderella and Princess Party host Laura Osnes is keeping it royal in her newest project, One Royal Holiday. It's a Hallmark film you can watch right now. Here you are on One Royal Holiday. Talk to us a little bit about what we can expect.
So I got to film this really sweet Hallmark movie, and it's called One Royal Holiday, and I play a young nurse named Anna who is headed to her dad's inn for the holidays. But not before she runs into a mother and son found stranded because of the impending storm. Their flight is canceled. And she, being like the helpful, sweet person that she is, she's like, oh my gosh, she overhears the conversation and invites them to her dad's inn. They, of course, go along for the ride and spend the week leading up to Christmas.
May I present the Queen and Crown Prince of Gorwick?
The Queen. We're happy tonight.
Wow, what's in here? It's just the crown jewels.
Serious?
No, it's shoes.
Of course, he is royalty. She is very closed off to love. She's been burned by love in the past, so it's not really something she's looking for. He's very kind of pretentious and stuffy and closed-minded, and throughout the week, they end up kind of softening each other's hearts a little bit.
I think what's super cool is the fact that right now Broadway is dark, but you were able to land a gig despite all of that. What does that feel like for you?
It was a complete miracle. I mean, in all honesty, I was so shocked and grateful to get the call. I'm so happy that Hallmark was one of the first networks to figure out how to continue production in the midst of a pandemic. And there are 5 fellow Broadway stars and artists in this movie, so I feel like they really took advantage of Broadway being shut down and got a lot of New York talent. And the movie filmed in Connecticut in July, and the whole cast and crew was quarantined together on set at the inn where we shot the movie. So it was kind of art imitating life in that way. It felt like Hallmark's like Christmas in July summer camp.
Were you guys around the inn kind of like singing all the time, or what? Like, what was that?
Yes, there was a lot of Broadway conversation, and it was such a joy. It actually, you know, there was an immediate kind of comfort level. I got to reunite with Victoria Clark, who was in Cinderella with me on Broadway. She played my fairy godmother, and she plays the Queen, rightly so, in this film. And getting to star opposite Aaron Tveit was, you know, something I've wanted to do for a long time. I've known Aaron for a long time. We've done concerts and things together, but I've never done a full project, and I was just elated to find out that, you know, he was cast as my co-star.
Still plenty more to talk about on this edition of Broadway Profiles. Up next, it's a best-selling novel, a film starring A-list actors, and now the first live theatrical experience in New York City since the start of this pandemic. An inside look at blindness when we come back. I'm Tamsen Fadal, and you're watching Broadway Profiles. Live theater is finally coming back to New York City. It's not quite Broadway, but it's another much-needed step toward getting back to normal. Let's go ahead and send it back to Broadway.com correspondent Charlie Cooper with that story.
Thanks, Tamsen. The critically acclaimed playwright Simon Stevens is up for yet another Tony Award. We spoke to him about his new sound installation, Blindness, set to be the first New York City indoor theater experience during COVID-19. You, of course, adapted Jose Saramago's novel Blindness into a production that's been playing in London. What was that like?
It was just extraordinary. I mean, it was an adaptation that I have to say I was working on for some time before the lockdown. You know, it wasn't a kind of speedy to the pandemic and decision to adapt a novel about a pandemic in a pandemic. It's something I've been working on for years. It's really interesting because it was made into a movie as well. There was a Julianne Moore movie about kind of 10 years ago that was had a much bigger constellation of characters and kind of cast every one of the characters and built entire cities. We made a binaural sound recording, which is absolutely, I don't know if you're familiar with binaural sound recordings.
No.
But they're the most crazy things, right? A binaural microphone is a microphone that is shaped like a human skull.
Huh.
And it's got 3 microphones embedded within the human skull. And what it does is the recordings replicate, when played back, the 3-dimensional experience in which the recordings were made.
Oh, wow.
So if you go up to this microphone and you whisper in the left ear, the recording sound, when you listen back on headphones, it sounds like Juliet Stevenson is whispering. Wow. Left ear, and if she kind of runs screaming through the room, it captures that completely. So it's an incredibly dynamic and exciting way of listening to the recording of the show. In London, it was the first piece of theatre that was made since the start of the pandemic, since the start of the lockdown, and for people to gather to experience this event, this installation, for the public to come and experience it, it felt really profound.
I know you guys did well in London, and now you're coming to the Darrell Roth Theater this fall in New York during COVID-19.
Yeah.
It's incredible. You guys are like leading the way as far as reopening of theater in the midst of a pandemic. What does that feel like?
I'm so excited. I'm really, really excited. The terrible thing is I don't know if I'm going to be able to come. So I love New York so deeply, but I don't know whether it's going to be safe or legal for me to come with the show. So I've never been envious of a piece of work before. I'm really envious of my own piece of work. It gets to go to New York when I don't.
Coming up on this edition of Broadway Profiles, another Tony nominee joins us to talk about Moulin Rouge the musical and more. I'm Tamsen Fadal, and you're watching Broadway Profiles. It's food, it's Shakespeare, and it's socially distant and safe. This month, Food of Love presents 12th Night Welcome to Our Table. It's one of Shakespeare's best loved comedies with a side of culinary flair, and the best part is, it's all for a good cause. Think of it as a new type of dinner theater. Live virtual performances combined with at-home interaction and some truly delicious desserts delivered to your door. Co-directors Victoria Ray Sook and Jessica Francis Victor partner with Evolving Door Theater Company. I spoke to one of the women behind Food of Love, Victoria Ray Sook, as well as some of the show's stars. Talk a little bit about what you have going on.
Yeah, so it's really, I mean, Food of Love was started in a living room of a way to bring people together for the love of art. And so it's how in this time when we feel even more disconnected than normal, can we bring people together, and especially artists who are feeling really lost right now. It's hard, and it's also really exciting to me because since it is online, we have people from all over the world in the show all coming together. So we have actors who've worked with the Globe and the RSC, and then some people who did live in New York and are now, you know, doing more TV and film in LA, who have all coming together in this spirit of community.
So tell me what the show is, the premise of it, and then who it goes to benefit, because there's something really nice knowing people come together, but everyone's looking for a cause that's important to them right now, and you know, you found one.
Absolutely, yeah. So it's Shakespeare's 12th night, because we are a Shakespeare company, and we picked 12th night because at the beginning of 12th night, Viola gets shipwrecked on a shore that she doesn't quite understand. But in all of that, it's a comedy. So it's how do we all navigate the world right now that we don't quite understand. We're calling it 12th night, welcome to our table, because we are benefiting the food banks of New York City. And so a portion of every ticket, and there's different ticket tiers. So obviously the higher you buy, the more money the food bank gets. But a portion of every single ticket gets donated back to the food bank, and there's options to feed someone for a week or feed a family for a week and things like that. So, and while we send you an immersive box, just like you were coming to our show and we would be feeding you at our show, you'll be being fed through the show and then have the opportunity to feed someone in need.
So talk about what night that when this is happening and what people could do to get tickets.
Yes, so it is November 13th and 14th, the second weekend in November, which is, another really good time to donate to the food bank because it's just in time for Thanksgiving.
So I think Emily, Sean, Miguel, they're all in the waiting room. I'm going to let them in, okay?
Amazing.
We were talking about the fact that nothing stops artists and performers from figuring out a way, even through such a difficult time like this, performers and artists need to perform, and we need it to, I think, help heal.
During the pandemic, especially as an actor or even a dancer, you're kind of deprived from having any kind of venue to do your art. First of all, I was grateful to just be able to do anything with storytelling. And secondly, to be a part of something so innovative during such a crazy time was a blessing.
Art finds a way. I think it's amazing that Victoria and her team have taken their original concept of an immersive experience and adapted it and enhanced it for this online theatrical experience.
Everyone's just come together to create this little baby and send it out.
It's such a lovely cast. I remember the first read through, just a fairly cold read through, and I was just laughing so much at what they were bringing to it. Just that first table read, you got a really special chemistry between everybody when it's working that quickly and that well over Zoom,
Where's all my soul sisters?
One of the things we miss the most about Broadway is that instant rush you get when you step into a theater and see the stage for the very first time. Even before the actors take that stage, the design of the set can capture your imagination and just take you away. And one of the masters of the craft is Dereck McLane. This year, his work is nominated for 2 Tony Awards for Moulin Rouge and A Soldier's Play.
Moulin Rouge is a very romantic story, but it's, of course, based on the movie, which is sort of rooted in a kind of maximalist excess. That's part of the fun of it. And honestly, I've never done anything as sort of extreme and over the top as Moulin Rouge ever in my life. It is, I think, probably the most elaborately designed set I've ever designed. And then A Soldier's Play, on the other hand, when you read this script, there's so many flashbacks, there's so many jumps forward and backwards in time, and just figuring out how do you make that function? How do you make that work on stage and not get in the way? How do you give enough information for the audience that they understand where they are, they understand the time and the period, but that you're not, the design is not getting in the way of the flow of that script.
And as we mentioned earlier, the Tony Awards will happen in 2020. And of course, we'll bring you all the winners and the highlights here on Broadway Profiles and also on Broadway.com. Until next time, please stay safe and healthy. I'm Tamsen Fadal, and this is Broadway Profiles.